Throughout Minecraft's history, many people came and went. You had the Bucket Project, the revolutionary server software that got brought down by its link to Mojang. Yatopia, which was just badly managed, badly optimized, and was brought down by the memes. And of course, the many abandoned mods on CurseForge's database. But throughout the ages, there is one mod that stands on top of them all. A mod that has revolutionized the modding scene forever. A mod that has been with us for almost a decade. I'm talking about the one mod every old head likes, Industrial Craft 2. And lucky enough, I was able to track down the current developer.
Yeah, well, I'm Spiger. I am the developer from IC2, Chunk Regen, Scavenge, Carbon Config, even Tiny Chest, which was my first mod.
That's Spiger, and I took the time with him to delve into how someone manages to make a mod that will be ingrained in the culture of Minecraft forever. And this is a story of IC2. And how a developer went from a small project that he could code in a week to a legendary mod that needed a year to update. And be sure to subscribe, as I am far from done interviewing influential mod developers. But with that out of the way, let's dive in once again. But before we dive, I have a quick announcement to make. As a server owner myself, I know it's difficult to find a good host, especially one that's reliable, and can't handle Timmy over here building an IBM computer in Redstone using nothing but zombie spawners. That's why when GG Servers reached out to me about a partnership, I was more than happy to have them aboard. So now you can save up to 25% of your next purchase of any game server you need from Minecraft to 7 Days to Die by using my code Pebble. They didn't even pay me to say this, by the way. I just wanted to make sure my little pebbles over here get the best deal they can. So thanks again to GG Server for their partnership agreement, and let's get back to your video. Now, I don't know about you, but my very first mod pack I played was Tekkit Classic. It was one of the first big ones next to Feed the Beast, and with mods like Buildcraft, Computercraft, Equivalent Exchange, and of course today's topic Industrial Craft, it's no wonder that it took the Minecraft world by storm. But why am I talking about this now? I mean, Tekkit Classic is almost a decade old at this point. Why should you care about an old mod for Minecraft 1.2.5? Jesus Christ, 1.2.5? Man, I'm old. Well, because this single mod created by Alblaka the Dragon Lord, which is one hell of a name, was the basis for so many mods that came after it. Most notable, you can see the inspiration in the mod crate itself, though these days it's no longer being developed by the original team, but rather by Spiger, an enthusiastic developer with many projects to his name, like Tiny Chest, Chunk Regenerator, Carbon Config, and etc. But how does someone just take over one of the foundational mods in Minecraft's existence?
That is actually like a really convoluted story in this case. IC2 was originally created by the original IC2 team, Alblaka, I botched his name most likely, Player, and a few others that I don't know all the names anymore. It's been long ago. They went in 1.5.2 towards the experimental branch, where they tried things out. Some may agree that's a good change, others say it's not a good change. It's up to the people. Imibis actually, that did like a lot of redstone stuff back then, didn't like that and made a classic version that was like completely incompatible with any other mod that used EU. And that later turned into the IC2 Classic version that I did. I actually took his version, which was based on the before they went experimental stage.
See, with the original IC2 being developed by Alblaka and its team, including Gregorius T, by the way, from GregTech, Spiger saw a version he liked the look of, and didn't like how something functioned, and made his own changes. After a while, he became one of the more prolific, if not the only updater of IC2, keeping its legacy alive all the way up to the modern version of Minecraft. That's right, I didn't know this as well, but you can still use IC2 in Minecraft versions all the way up to 1.19.2. But going from a relatively small mod called Tiny Chest to the behemoth that is IC2, that must have been a step up, right? Well, again, I asked Spiger about this, and this was his response.
You never forget your first mod. That's like out of the question. Like with everything in that sense. Tiny Chest was a challenge of its own. Like, because I had not much experience, I always tried things out. But if we go in terms of what was more difficult, it's IC2, because it has a much larger scale. I jumped from a tiny mod that's like that I could develop now in a week with art included, which is my weak point, and recreate it. IC2 takes years. It's a whole different level, but I wouldn't say that neither of them were easy. They were just challenges for their time.
Well, honestly, I agree with him here. You never forget your first mod. Hence why 8 years later, I'm still talking about this one. But how does one deal with the increase of scope from something they admit they could just code in a few weeks to something he needs a year for to complete?
Java.
Yeah, except for
I had
Java.
to learn Java. And well, technically nowadays you could recreate Tiny Chest to some degree with MC Creator or something like that, because they do allow some logic, and there is not that much complex logic in Tiny Chest to begin with.
What were the general like rough spots during development of IC2C that you would have liked to know before you have started the project? Like if you could tell yourself while starting IC2C, like this is going to happen, prepare by doing this. What would those things be that you would tell yourself to prepare for?
It's going to take time. Seriously, I was rushing the first versions. Like I wanted to be done like within days, which I achieved. Not the amount that I wanted, but like a couple days longer. But I basically paid afterwards in catching up with all the technical debt that I have created or that was already there. Like I didn't go through everything. I didn't actually know how to do or how to use certain systems or implement them or how to work with them until I actually had to start to recreate them in 1.7.10, for example. Like I didn't know how the audio system worked. Networking was still like this magic bullet, like that had worked in Tiny Chest somehow. And I was also learning that I had like a lot of mistakes or made a lot of mistakes because of that. Rushing things and trying like to brute force everything is not a good idea. And that's like the first thing that I would have told myself, like sit down, relax, take a couple weeks. Yes, it's slow. You're not going to see it, but you're stubborn enough to see it through.
Again, this is just good advice for all coders out there. Don't rush it. Stick to your Nerf guns and see how it goes. Although that brings us to the one thing I noticed about IC2. It doesn't have a Fabric version yet. See, nowadays with the modding community being as divided as it is, people either want or expect a mod to be both on Fabric and Forge. And some developers like Young take the time to code their API and multiloader compilers to speed things up. By the way, if you're interested in that video, I will link it right up there. But Spiger didn't do this. At the moment, there's no Fabric version for IC2, and I wanted to know why that is. Is there a Fabric version for IC2C? And if there isn't, or if there isn't any planned, why is there no Fabric version or Fabric version planned?
That is a easy and difficult explanation to give, or question to answer. There is no Fabric version. There most likely will never be a Fabric version. I'm saying still most likely because I'm never 100% sure. It could be that Fabric like comes out with exactly what I want and it just is basically better than all other options. But right now, that's not it. The one thing that I want to say before I answer why that's the case, we actually tried using Fabric during the 1.19 version. Like we started out, we did like a week or week and a half of working inside Fabric, and then we realized it doesn't work out of multiple ways. Back then, when we started, Fabric was way more behind. Like we started in 1.14. So that is like nowadays, most of these issues are addressed that I have found back then. But the issue is we're a small team, and not all are really experienced with Minecraft modding in itself. They know coding and have enough experience to maintain systems that are provided by me, but they can't create these systems out of their own. If like, for example, if there's like an event that Forge usually provides, and in Fabric that's missing, they will not figure out like rather quickly like how to create this event. Normal modders will like say, oh, this is like missing, I know where to implement that, let's implement it. It was just in that sense, it's like there's not enough hand-holding in Fabric in that sense, where a lot more work would have fallen on me specifically to accommodate the other helpers that I want to work with. And Forge provided basically these accommodations for me out of the gate, and I could just work with them.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason why you see so many devs not going over to Fabric. Some things are just not implemented. He specifically called out the fluid system not being present back then, later in our call, which as always will be available on the Patreon if you're interested. It's important to remember that just because Fabric is new and runs slightly better, it's not as developed as Forge was. And while it's getting there, many creature comforts or just tools devs are used to using with Forge are not available or as easy as on Forge. But what should you, a budding modding developer, take away from this story? Well, once again, I'll let Spiger explain that part. What would your advice be for any budding modding developers out there?
I had to actually think a lot about this question. But it's going to be the same that I'm going to tell myself. Don't jump from 0 to 100 instantly. Like, yes, you can have big plans. That's totally fine. But if you are not ready for it, and you will find out if you're not ready for it, that's just going to set up you for failure in that sense. It is fine to have like big dreams, but I would prepare myself in the sense that I start with smaller projects or like with like gathering knowledge to actually make them happen. Like, start small is what I'm saying, and it will make life a lot easier on you.
And you heard it here, folks. Start small, plan big. That's not only good modding advice, it's just good advice in general. Make things you want to make and keep that passion alive. Because in a world where people constantly complain about how bored they are and not knowing what they want to do in life, your passion is the biggest thing you have. But I think that's enough rambling for today. I was Lunar, you were very awesome, and I'll see you next time. Thanks to the many Pebbles bankrolling these videos. My lovely Pebbles are already scrolling down on the bottom, and I just wanted to say a special thank you to my boulders Rebecca and Farron. And of course a massive shout out to my mountain supporters Comet Speed, Hans Friends and Willux. Your support means the absolute world to me, and I'm honored to have you aboard. If you want to have full access to my interview with Spigers and other big mod developers or server software developers, it's available on the Patreon page for just €1. Thanks again, lads, and I'll see you in the next one.